Welcome everyone to Buddha Center. Happy Sunday. It's so wonderful to see all of you. So wonderful to be able to discuss Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. Just thinking about Khensur Rinpoche today quite a bit, and thinking about all of the wisdom that he bestowed on us and all of the patience that he had with us, and how he was never ever bored or ever felt like, oh, I can't tell this instruction one more time. He just kept repeating these things over and over again. Hold on one second. Because he knew that we needed to mature our minds in such a way that was going to take repeated, information over and over and over again in order for us to have it saturate. And without it saturating, that information doesn't really change our minds. And Rinpoche was so kind to be able to see that we needed that kind of maturation. We needed that repetition. We needed that kind of foundational repetition. And as a result, I found in my life that foundational repetition has produced a desire within me to really make this stuff a sole focus of my days. Not the only focus. I don't have renunciation, unfortunately. I wish that I did. I wish that it had produced that incredible result that's so amazing. But fortunately, I've been affected enough by these teachings that I make them a priority now. Whereas before, when I first met with them, there were other things that in terms of percentage took priority in my life. And they weren't really anything that I can even pinpoint now. It was just a whole mess of things that I went out and did and found so important and chased after, or, stood next to, whatever it was that I did. But what I can say now, as a result of the teachings from Khensur Geshe Wangdak, as a result of having my mind saturated just a little bit with Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, the percentage of my kind of running towards things that aren't the Dharma has lessened. And as a result of that lessening, I feel more at peace. I feel like I'm a happier, more realistic person. Not always at peace, not always free from anger. No, this isn't what I'm trying to, put on a billboard and sell you. But what I'm trying to say is that there is a change that takes place when you pay attention to this information and you invest in it. And you not only pay attention to it and invest in it for one day, but you do so over the course of weeks, months, years, and then decades, and then maybe a couple decades. And you're going to be able to see the fruit of the practice, because this is information that is truth. This is information that actually works. If we put this information into our mind, it will transform our mind into a mind that operates more realistically, that has less fear, that has more compassion. And that kind of mind, an individual who possesses that kind of mind, is a happier person because of not having to feel so attached and so unsettled and unrested when we can't get things that we want. And we won't feel so unsettled and rested when we feel that there's things that we should be angry at, because we'll have so much more of a realistic kind of understanding about the way that things are. First of all, from the perspective when we're looking at, the nature of reality and understanding that things don't have the objective existence that we think that they have, that we apprehend them to have, that makes us run at them or makes us run away from them. But then also when we recognize that we're grasping at things incorrectly, and it's causing all of our problems and all of our kind of miserable reactions, when we start to understand that from our side, this is what's going on, is what has been going on since beginningless time. When we start to look outside of ourselves, which we only do usually to decide whether we want something or hate something, when we start to look outside of ourselves and see the relatability with other sentient beings, and their actions and reactions are driven by the same misapprehension of reality that our kind of actions and reactions are driven by. And we see we've done a lot of actions and reacted badly. We've had a lot of actions. We've done a lot of actions and reacted badly because of the way that we misperceive things. So when we see somebody doing something like that, acting badly, And if it's towards us, we can then generate a more realistic response because we know why they're doing it and it's not as personal. We don't think it's just because of us. We understand that they're acting in such a way because of their self-grasping ignorance, and we're receiving it in such a way because we've created some sort of karma in the past that's concordant with being yelled at. We may have yelled at someone a little tiny bit, and then now all of a sudden that karma has magnified and turned into someone screaming at us for an hour. But we recognize, A, that person is empty of inherent existence, doesn't recognize that he or she is empty of inherent existence. That lack of recognition drives self-cherishing attitude and inappropriate attention kind of ideas that then drive one towards or away from objects. And unfortunately, at this moment, this person yelling at me has grasped at themselves as being truly established, has exaggerated me as someone who should be yelled at as having bad qualities that they need to fix or something. And then their mind is disturbed and their reactions are reacting accordingly, coming from that self-grasping ignorance that's seeing me as objectively bad. And it's that ignorance that's making them do it. So the great, masters of the Lojong tradition say, don't get, mad at the person, get mad at the anger. Because it's the anger that you previously had that's karmically, since beginningless time, that anger that you previously had that caused you to engage in something that's ripening into a concordant result of someone yelling at you. So we have to see this bigger picture. And when we see this bigger picture through the lens of understanding karma and its results, through the lens of understanding the nature of reality, then we start to act more realistically and the things don't affect us in the same way. And eventually they can't affect us. And eventually we'll be able to be completely loving, but not have any suffering in connection to that affection. Normally we have affection and then we suffer from separation, or we suffer in ways when that other person is suffering. But we'll be able to have that complete love for all sentient beings, but not have our minds disturbed because we'll understand the nature of reality and we'll just spontaneously want them to have happiness and want them to be free from suffering when we're Buddhas. And we'll know exactly what to do for that person at that moment in order to help them ripen just a little bit further, in order to ripen just a little bit further. So these are the goals that we're seeking. This is the reason we study emptiness. This is why we study bodhicitta. It's so we can end our fears and we can eventually have this infinite bliss. And the infinite bliss comes from our relationship to every single sentient being in the universe that we can develop more and more and more along the bodhisattva path. So before we talk any more about complicated things and bodhicitta and emptiness and stages of the path and so forth, let's get into the 7-point Vairocana posture. And 1 second, I just have to fix this, which is a posture that's most conducive to having a kind of clear state of mind. It's making our physical base set up as a support to having clarity of mind. And we talked about this quite a bit before, so let's just get into the 7-point Vairocana posture. And this will let us know, okay, we've done everything physically to know whether or not we've gotten into a place where our mind is clear. And now we can check and see whether our mind is clear or not. If our mind is not clear after we've gotten into the 7-point Vairocana posture, we apply various antidotes to that lack of clarity before we even try to generate the merit field. If we're looking at it from the perspective of the 6 preparations, before we even generate a merit field, we try to get our minds into a state that really is effective in doing so. And if we're trying to sit for a long period of time and we're just trying to gruel through it, better to sit for 2 minutes than for 1 hour distracted. Better to sit for 1 minute and really exercise and really practice what you would need to in order to develop shamatha in a real way than to kind of get used to bad habits and sit there for long periods of time and ingrain bad habits within yourself. That are bad habits of distraction, scattering, sleepiness, dullness, just kind of ingraining these bad habits in you. And that's why when we get into the 7-point Vairocana posture and we get focal object and we look at distractions and we, look at antidotes, we're doing this in order to make sure that we have quality meditation, not quantity meditation. Quality meditation is the thing that we want to habituate. Quantity, if it's quality, awesome. But if it's, not quality, but quantity, it's not really helpful. It's just basically doing what we do all the time, watching our mind be busy, being sleepy. It's not really any difference. And we're calling it meditation. We're calling it spiritual practice. We're calling it watching our mind. Watching our mind do what? Watching our mind do what it always does. We're always watching our mind do something. We're watching it a little bit more closely. No. We're trying to tell our minds what to do, and we're watching our mind to see if it's doing what we told it to do. This is mindfulness. Introspection is the watcher, and the mindfulness is the not forgetting what we told it to do. And this is so important to know about mindfulness. Geshe Dorje Damdu says mindfulness is being mindfulness in the moment of the past and the future. How did I get here? Karma and results. I'm in samsara. I'm in this moment of cyclic existence, in this moment of afflictive obstructions and obstructions to omniscience. The future, all sentient beings will become a Buddha. In this moment, I will do everything that it takes to shuck off the things in which make me not a Buddha. So that's the moment we're trying to get at. We're trying to learn from the past, know that we have, this human basis, understand karma and its results, understand what we've done in this life that has been successful and done in this life that hasn't been successful in terms of our spiritual path. And then in that moment, we're looking at what our goal is, and then we're doing something in each and every one of those moments to try to move closer to a nirvana, closer to Buddhahood, and away from those tendencies that we've had since beginningless time that have produced samsara. Okay, 7-point Vairocana posture. We're going to have the focal object that we're going to use in this meditation that we're going to do very quickly. We'll be breathing in and out and the counting of the breath, so rounds of the breath. And then the front generation form of Buddha Shakyamuni, not animated, about thumb size, arm length away, eye height, beautiful and radiant, however you would normally imagine Buddha Shakyamuni, but that radiance is static. So it's in a static position. So you're breathing in and out and counting the breath, imagining Buddha Shakyamuni, and you're only allowing your mind to focus on those 4 things: breathing in, breathing out, counting Buddha Shakyamuni, and anything else that starts to come around, any distraction that comes around, or if it's not even clear, if like some sort of lethargy is sneaking in, and that breathing in and out and counting in Buddha Shakyamuni isn't super clear, and even if you're kind of not distracted mentally in terms of conception, but there's this lethargy or dullness and the object isn't bright, that's a problem too. So we're going to have introspection, catch it, spine of the mind, catch it, and mindfulness, bring it back to the focal object. Okay, ready? Go. La ike dan lu dan jing ge zhubun da dan mi ike nan dan zhuwa gong ji zhuan nan jin zang ba dan jie ge du da ji ju den du. In the language of the gods, nagas, and yaksas, in the language of demons and humans too, in however many kinds of speech there may be, I shall proclaim the Dharma in the language of all. We're so fortunate to be here today. To look at Buddha Shakyamuni's teachings, and particularly we're in the section on the medium scope, the teaching shared in common with beings of medium capacity, where we find this incredible presentation on the 4 Noble Truths. We're so fortunate that Buddha Shakyamuni came to this world to teach us the 4 Noble Truths. He came to teach us that this is the superior truth of suffering, this is the superior truth of origin, this is the superior truth of cessation, this is the superior truth of path. Suffering is to be identified, origin is to be abandoned, cessation is to be achieved, and path is to be meditated upon. There is no suffering to identify. There is no origin to abandon. There is no cessation to achieve, and there is no path to rely upon. And those 12 statements about those 4 truths really form the foundation depending on how we interpret them, for all of the teachings, the Hinayana teachings, the Mahayana teachings, and even the Vajrayana teachings. When we look at how it is, the emptiness in the sutra vehicle, the emptiness in the tantric vehicle is the same emptiness. There isn't a different emptiness. There isn't a different nature of reality. So we see that the truth of suffering that we are experiencing, when we look at the 8 types of suffering, the 6 types of suffering, and the 3 types of suffering, all arise from causes. And the cause that gives rise to the suffering that we have to experience, when we look at what the root of it is, we find that it's a self-grasping ignorance. The self-grasping ignorance that gives rise to kind of an inappropriate attention of the self and phenomena, inappropriate attention that exaggerate things, exaggerates them to believe they have qualities that they don't. And in kind of response to that exaggeration, my mind then moves kind of towards or away from things, becomes attached or hates things, or just resides in an ignorant state about them. And then I create, contaminated karma as a result of the afflictions that came about from this inappropriate exaggeration. And that contaminated karma, non-virtuous contaminated karma, gives rise to the lower realms. Virtuous contaminated karma gives rise to the higher realms. So we have to identify what that means. What's the contamination? And the contamination is the self-grasping ignorance. So anything that we do under, before we're Aryas, everything that we do before we're Aryas, is a contaminated virtue. And it is only the uncontaminated virtues that, will actually give rise to and perpetuate the dependent origination of the Buddha's experience over and over again. So the way these virtues become uncontaminated is by kind of distilling the negativity out of the virtues that we have in our mind with the wisdom realizing emptiness, uncontaminating those virtues. So this is an incredible thing that we can learn how to do, learn how to turn everything good we've ever done into pure good, even though we maybe did it with, kind of grasping while we were doing it. We can somehow, purify it by recognizing the nature of reality. So this isn't the topic for today, but this is how important these Four Noble Truths are, and really rejoice in the fact that we've had a presentation of them. We've had a presentation of the Four Seals. We know how to connect these things and understand that all results depend upon their causes, and results are concordant with their causes. And if the causes are contaminated, the results are going to be contaminated. But if the causes aren't contaminated, the results won't be contaminated. So we can see how we can remove the contamination from our virtue and have it give rise to an uncontaminated state of nirvana, or an abiding or a non-abiding nirvana. So we can see how we can uncontaminate things in our way of thinking. And then the things we do, if they're not contaminated, those are actions. That's what karma is, action. So if our actions aren't contaminated, okay, virtue is not contaminated, it gives rise to, uncontaminated virtue. And uncontaminated virtue is virtue that isn't samsaric cause, doesn't cause cyclic existence, doesn't cause 8, 6, 3 sufferings. So we have to figure out what that means and how to go about that. So now imagine that Buddha Shakyamuni, who was completely fixed for a few seconds, maybe, now explodes into a very animated form. And you imagine that he's been containing the entire merit field. Imagine now all the holy gurus, Buddhas, and bodhisattvas are in the space in front of you. Any beings that you consider enlightened beings, imagine them right there. Imagine Buddha Shakyamuni, imagining His Holiness Dalai Lama, Khensur Geshe Wangdak, Geshe Lobsang Gompo, imagining Demolocho Rinpoche and Khensur Lobsang Gyatso, imagining Geshe Dorje Damdu and Umzala Geshe Aga and Geshe Malatensen Ladrin and Jeffrey Hopkins and Chado Rinpoche and Ani Thupten Chodron La, imagining all of these holy beings in the space in front of you. Any being that you consider holy. Lama Zopa Rinpoche, there's so many. Geshe Pende at Drepung Losaling in Atlanta, incredible teacher. All of these holy beings, imagining them in the space in front of you. Again, imagining all of the translators, all these people who've done so much work for us. Lama Alan Wallace is not only a translator, but Lama, and Geshe and Jeffrey Hopkins and Thupten Jimba, and all of these incredible scholars, Alexander Berzin, just who've affected us so much. Just we know that they've really just wanted us to be able to be clear on what the Dharma is, and just rejoice in the fact that we've connected with them. And imagine these holy beings, if you consider these being holy beings in the space in front of you, imagine all the beings of the extensive deeds lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Lord Maitreya and Asanga and Vasubandhu and Dharmakirti and Dignaga and Vimuktasena and Haribhadra, and imagining Gunaprabha and Shakyaprabha and Lama Salingpa and Lama Lord Atisha there. Just we're so blessed to be connected to the extensive deeds lineage, where we learn about the grounds, paths, the Vinaya, logic, reasoning. We learn about the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment, 70 topics of the Abhisamalamkara. We're so fortunate to be able to understand these things because of connecting with our lamas. Now imagine all the beings of the profound view lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Manjushri and Nagarjuna and Buddha Palita and Arya Deva and Chandrakirti and Shanti Deva and Baba Vega and Chandra Rashita and Kamala Shila, and now again imagining Lama Salingpa and Lord Atisha, imagining all of these holy beings of the profound view lineage, the Madhyamaka view, where we find out from Nagarjuna that all things lack inherent existence, or absent of inherent existence because of dependent origination. And we come to understand that things are just merely subjectively imputed, but because of this subjective imputation, this imputation of thought that goes on, things exist, and they come into origination in this way. But because they dependently originate, because they are dependent, they are not inherently existent. So we find out this incredible teaching on the middle way because of the profound view lineage, and we're so connected to it. The understanding of what the Heart Sutra means, we're fortunate and blessed to be able to understand because of these holy beings of the profound view lineage, and the lineage of blessings passed down, Vajradhar and Saraha and Tripa and Tilopa and Naropa and Lotsawa Marpa and Milarepa and Gampopa, these beings who truly knew the nature of the mind. We're so fortunate to be connected to them. Imagining the holy beings such as Drontompa that Atisha passed the Lam Rim lineage down to, and all of the old Kadampa lineages, the 3 old Kadampa lineages. Imagining the holy beings of the Nyingma lineage, Padmasambhava, Sakya lineage, Sakya Kunga Nyingpo, and Sakya Pandita, the Kaju lineage, such as the Karmapas, the Galupa lineage, Lama Tsongkhapa, Kirtupje, Jelsupje, imagining Panchen Sanandrapa, imagining Basuchuji Jetson, Jayan Sheba, Gonchu Jimmy Wampo, Janjan Ripi Dorje, 7th Dalai Lama, imagining all of these holy beings we're so fortunate to connect to. Thinking of the beings of the highest yoga tantra, yogic tantra, action, performance tantra, and action tantra lineage, these 4 classes of tantra that we're so connected to and so fortunate to be able to understand, with these 4 levels of desire that we can work with and transform into virtue, transform these desires into purity, just like a bug that is born from wood that eats the wood. So we're able to transform these levels of emotion of negative emotion into levels of pure emotion. And that way we can very, very quickly get to the state of Buddhahood if we've realized the teachings that are the foundational teachings that will allow us to actually work with these 4 classes of Tantra. And we're so blessed to have the foundational teachings that we need to have to understand these 4 classes of Tantra, to be able to be like the peacock that wanders through a poison grove and uses the poison to become more beautiful, and not the being who is not that kind of being, who is not the Bodhisattva, that tries to utilize these 4 classes of Tantra and tries to engage in using negativity on the path and is only poisoned by their own practice. We have to make sure when we look at Tantrayana that we're a being who really possesses the foundational qualities that are necessary for us to really then transform into this kind of divine pride, this pride of being a deity, without then just turning it into another level of samsaric existence. being able to make it a way to free ourselves from samsara instead of reifying it. And some people who practice the 4 classes of Tantra who don't have the foundation have just created another division of samsara where their imagination has even made them more deluded than they were before they got in touch with it. And we have to make sure that we understand this resultant vehicle and understand the foundation of all of the individual liberation vows and bodhisattva vows that serve for us to be able to practice Tantrayana, and all of the the meditations on calm abiding and all the insights that are necessary for us to practice Tantrayana. If we have any of these things deficient and we think that we're really practicing Tantrayana, we are fooling ourselves. And it's important that we know this. And we know that we're connected to these beings, but to know who we are. As Rinpoche always said, if a pig is trying to follow a tiger and doing all of the athletic things that a tiger can do, that pig will definitely break its leg and be hurt. Likewise, beings who are unprepared to practice Tantrayana because they don't have the foundational qualities, they don't have the ethics, they aren't tigers, they aren't beings. They're beings who think they're tigers, but really are pigs. And those beings will really have a disaster when trying to practice Tantrayana. So it's just something we always, I don't want to get off track. Got a little distracted, but it's something that we always have to talk about and always remember that, yes, we have access to the Vajrayana, but is the Vajrayana for us? Can we practice the Vajrayana? Do we really have the foundation of bodhicitta, the foundation of the correct view of emptiness that it takes to be able to practice Tantrayana? Is there grasping? Do we have the view? Are we attached to our own self-interest? Are we attached to samsara? Are we attached to this life? If those things are true, that we have these, we have grasping, we have attachment to our self-interest, we have attachment to samsara, we have attachment to, this life, then we really aren't vessels for Tantrayana. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do mantras and shouldn't, take initiations as blessings. But our soul practice, come on, it needs to be realistic. It needs to be that which gives rise to the result of an illusory body. And that isn't starting from the generation stage of highest yoga tantra. That's engaging in all of the preliminaries and the perfection vehicle that set up that beautiful fertile ground for Tantrayana to actually work. It's just imagination, maybe some imprints, but also those imprints, realize, folks, this is so important. Whenever I think of something, I just say it in the teaching. This is so important that look at the teaching on the person who practiced Yamantaka their whole lives. They had a single pointed concentration of themselves as Yamantaka so much they had trouble getting through doorways and stuff. There's different stories. This is how much they saw themselves as Yamantaka. They didn't have the foundational practices. Born in hell in the image of Yamantaka. We have to realize these foundational practices. Okay, now 4 classes of Tantra. Now imagine the 35 Buddhas. No problem there. Basis of purification, no danger. Imagine any among the 35 Buddhas in front of you. I say to this glorious Buddha, fill in the blank with all the names and stuff. I make prostrations and eons of non-virtue. Just wash away, purify from your mind in terms of their potential to kind of give rise, their potency, their potency gets suppressed, if you will, by doing these recitations. We know the liberating path, the wisdom of realizing emptiness is the only thing that chops it out, but it gets suppressed. It gets suppressed down if we can do that. So we know that this is what we can do initially to try to work with these practices so that we can transform our minds even before we can transform our minds. So we have all of the 35 Buddhas, no problem. We can make a prostration and we can purify all these eons of negativity, suppress them, and so that when they can't give rise to any of the results that we don't want. So we're so fortunate to be connected to these 35 Buddhas. And I really encourage you to look at commentaries on the 35 Buddhas and see what I'm talking about in terms of the power of purification, and then utilize these 35 Buddhas in your 4 opponent powers practice when you're doing, your purification, when we do a non-virtue virtue, we engage in the four opponent powers. We went over that very well, where we have the power of basis, we have the power of regret, we have the power of antidote, and then we have the power of making a commitment. So in the power of antidote, we can apply the 35 Buddhas of confession, and it serves as an antidote and starts to wash away, not only that thing and those things that we can think of, but eons of negativities that we maybe even didn't think of are suppressed by this virtue of connecting with these holy beings because of the power of the basis of these holy beings. We're fortunate, connected to these beings. Now imagine all the classes, all the different protector deities. There's deities, there's beings out there who said, it'll be my job, when I'm a Buddha, or my job, even not as a Buddha. They make these declarations on the path to protect the teachings, to protect the people who practice the teachings. I'll, in whatever way possible. And we all know Buddha does not wash away negativities of beings with water. So the protectors aren't going to throw some water on you and now you're a bullet can't penetrate you. You got to be careful when you think about protectors. We're protecting our mind really from self-grasping ignorance. That's what a protector is really trying to do. The Buddha doesn't wash away negativity's water, doesn't remove miseries by hands, doesn't transfer realizations. So protectors, we're always thinking, oh, we need these protectors. Let's pray to the protectors. It's by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. How can we be protected? By learning about emptiness. Where there's no obscuration of mind, there's no fear. Does someone who is fearless need protection? No. So how are we protected really? By being taught the truth of suchness. So when we're invoking protectors, they're trying to figure out how they can do whatever they can to teach us the truth of suchness. And sometimes they can be more wrathfully doing it, but there's no special power from the Buddha's side to do anything but to know exactly how to teach us the truth of suchness, because that's how we're liberated. So we're always looking for external things to fix us. But what we're really saying to protectors is, hey, I really want to learn more about emptiness, but I don't know how to ask. So I ask like this because I don't really know how to ask. But if I knew how to ask, I'd say, please just teach me emptiness. And if I said, I really just want to be happy, like the highest happiness, but I don't know how to ask. If I knew how to ask, I'd say, just teach me about bodhicitta. Because if I want to be free from suffering, I need to be taught emptiness. And if I want to have the most infinite bliss possible, it needs to be coupled with bodhicitta. So if I don't want to have fear, I have things I'm scared of, please protect me. I have this thing that makes me so happy, please protect it. If I don't want to have that, then I need to understand emptiness. And if I want to have bliss in relation to every single sentient being, I need to understand bodhicitta. If I want to have as much bliss as there is out there to get, I need to understand bodhicitta. So if we were really smart, we would say, when terrible things are happening and life was just falling apart, we'd say, please, I pray, Palden Lama, Mahakala, Vaishravana, Kalaputra, Dharmaraja, Dharmapalas, please, all of you, whatever name I use, please teach me emptiness and bodhicitta. It seems so irrational because you really want to say, please stop the storm. Stop the external factors that are the real problem. Oh, protector deity. But what's the real problem? Shantideva said, if we're going to spend our lives trying to beat up external factors and fight external factors, we're going to keep losing because they're infinite. If we're going to try to make the whole world soft and be the way we want it to, that's just going to be a problem if we're going to try. If external factors are going to be how we're happy, we're going to depend on them to be happy, we're in big trouble. But if the world's really rough and jagged, wouldn't it be more realistic to put on a nice pair of sandals to walk on it? And then it'll feel smooth. So from your own side, it's nirvana. This is the difference. It's the sandals. It's the mind. It's the experiencer. What's experienced is because of the experiencer. It's because of the self-grasping ignorance. If it's fearful, it's because of this beginninglessly wrong thing. It's been exaggerating everything. And this exaggeration makes us go, I need it. I hate it. Or it just is the way it seems. Just is the way it seems. Oh, there's a thing that is the way it seems. Let me move closer to it. Oh, that thing that appears to be objectively existent. I like that. So the ignorance now just moved over to attachment. Like you were just sitting in ignorance, everything around me, objectively existent. Now I'm making contact. I'm paying attention to an object and I'm like, oh, well, that objectively existent thing over there, I'm going to put more value on than that objectively existent thing over there. So the starting point is objective existence that doesn't exist. That's my starting point, is with a non-existent I believe to be true. Incredible how we do this. How we just mess everything up based on a very simple misperception that's so complicated when we try to understand this simple misperception. Really. It's that truth of suchness. Please teach me bodhicitta. Please teach me emptiness. So I don't have to have fear, and so I don't have a cap on my happiness. Because that's all I'm asking a protector to do, is like remove these situations. What, and that the new ones won't come? But what if I could remove the experiencer's kind of, experience of the situation and make it more tally with reality? Then all the rest of it just dissolves. And tallying with reality from a Mahayana perspective, meaning that I have to put others' needs before my own if I want bliss. But those beings, myself, and that bliss, they're all empty of inherent existence. They're merely designated. Wow. If we can figure out what all of that means, that emptiness and bodhicitta, the union of method and wisdom, that travels, emptiness and bodhicitta, and then somehow unites in Tantrayana, it makes a union. We don't have to do any, we can become the most reliable guides in the universe. And then whoever, say a name on the screen, if I'm not a Buddha, you'll be the most reliable guide in the universe. And you'll come, I'll say, please protect me. And you'll be like, oh, there's Jeff again, asking to remove the rain. I got to figure out how to teach him bodhicitta and the truth of suchness. Because all he really wants is to be free from suffering and have bliss. And he's not going to get it if I just remove the rain. Because the rain's going to come back. And maybe a tornado is going to come. Or maybe it's just going to be no rain and a drought. And hot. 120 degrees for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And then where's the rain? I want the rain so bad. Bring the rain back, Paul and Lamo. We're so unrealistic. You don't know what you have till it's gone. That saying, I think like an 80s rock band figured that out. It's so incredible. It's so incredible how just messed up we are, and how perfect we can become. And because our messed upness isn't our nature, it can turn into, through dependent origination, into perfection. So if we dependently originate over and over and over and over again into a mind that's imbued with cherishing others more than ourselves, and a mind that sees things as not being objectively real, then we're good. Then we can really experience our true nature. And we can transform this state, because of this emptiness, into that state of perfection. So we have all of the Buddhas here. Let's bring all sentient beings here, because every sentient being that is not a Buddha. That's the line of demarcation. A sentient being is not a Buddha. A Buddha is not a sentient being. So anyone who is a sentient being has at least the obstructions to omniscience. At least. Maybe afflictive obstructions are gone and they're on the 8th, 9th, 10th and bodhisattva level. but they're still sentient beings, those high bodhisattvas emanating all over the place. Like, oh my gosh, incredible. Still sentient beings, still not omniscient, still not the most reliable guides in the universe. So imagine we bring every single sentient being here to be able to hear the truth of suchness and hear about bodhicitta, so they can become Buddhas from wherever they're at, because that's what we want, and all sentient beings are equally important. So imagine we bring hell, hungry ghost, animal, human beings, demigods, and gods here, and they're all here in order to hear about the truth of suchness, in order to hear the teachings on bodhicitta, in order to hear whatever it is exactly they need to hear in their own individual language and own individual message as well. So imagine you've brought them all here. Imagine that all of the holy beings, all of the Buddhas are here. And now, before we recite the Heart Sutra, just again, we're going to read an excerpt from Meditation on Emptiness. We're working with this book quite a bit recently, so I'm finding a lot of value, to say the least, an immense amount of value in this text. And I really encourage all of you, not a big, the beginning, maybe get it, and it'll help hold up more of your beginner books. And then, you will slowly be able to understand the meaning of it. But the reason I'm saying this is maybe some of you are super high scope and you're going to read this and it's just going to click. But this is a very complex book that is like a page at a time you read and think about for a day. And that, isn't just a quick read on your nightstand, but could become that once you know more about emptiness and about things. But I don't want anyone to get discouraged, run out and say, oh, Jeff, I just heard on this social app, you got to get the Meditation on Emptiness book. That'll be the key. And then you run out and buy Meditation on Emptiness. What is this talking about? Because it just starts out like right from the first section in Prasangika, object of negation, and as it should. It's called Meditation on Emptiness. But just remember, if you do pick up this book, it's quite complicated, and you should couple it with some of the more, Jeffrey Hopkins has a lot of other works that you could also works with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. There's 63, take your pick. And there's a lot of works that are more introductory works that will really help you to understand this even more. So we left off, what we were trying to figure out is, okay, what's the object of negation? What is this emptiness? What is it empty of? Is emptiness mean non-existence? Does emptiness mean something doesn't exist though? So it's telling me, it's pointing at something that doesn't exist, but is it saying that what I think non-existent means? So in order for us to sort any of that out, like, okay, does it exist? Does it exist the way I think? Okay, if the way it doesn't exist the way I think, but is that compatible with it still being able to exist? Yes. Nagarjuna says yes. Okay, so we have a problem here. We have two ways. Does it exist? Yes. But does it exist the way I think? No. So here we're starting to work out what it's empty of. It's not empty of existence when we're talking about conventionalities. At an ultimate level, that's another story. But when we're talking about conventionalities, when we're talking about at a subjective level, we're saying that, yes, this thing exists, but the non-existent part is the way you think it exists. So how does it exist conventionally if you're saying it doesn't exist the way that I think it exists? Because I'm walking around and I'm seeing stuff, and my neighbor is going to say, this stuff, that's a car. It's a blue car with tires. I mean, it exists exactly the way that I think that it exists. I think it exists as a whole thing from its own side. I mean, we all think it just, that in order for it to exist, it has to exist the way I think it exists. But Nagarjuna says, no, it can exist, but not existing the way that I think it exists, because I think that it exists objectively from its own side as a flower, a chair, or a car. But Nagarjuna is saying that it doesn't exist from its own side. That doesn't exist. But what does exist is that it exists through mere imputation from the subject. So there's a collection there, or a collection here, there, here, whatever, self phenomena, self a person, self a phenomenon. There's a collection here that's merely designated as this or that. But that collection doesn't have any kind of self characteristics from its own side that inherently make it this or that. The lower Madhyamaka school says it does. It says that I'm a namer, it's a named, it should be named the way I name it. 50-50. There's some nestness over there. Prasangika says, no way. So where do we start? Okay. Maybe you're confused, maybe you're totally on it and you get it. Okay. So where do we start? We start by seeing how it appears to us. How does the I, because it's the closest thing to us. That chair over there, you know, if somebody runs in the room with a knife, I could care less about the chair. I'm worried about the I. It's the closest thing to me, you know. As much as I like the chair over there, I'm not going to freak out in the same way about the chair if someone runs in here with a gun or a knife and says, stick them up. I'm not going to go, oh my God, the chair. I'm going to go, the self-sufficient I is being harmed. This permanent, unitary, independent self, autonomous, substantially real self is about to be harmed. There it is. That's the I you're starting to work with. And that's why the great meditators say, start with the I. Because when that big thing happens, you're not worried about the chair. You're so close to this thing that you're misperceiving. Let's start there. And then if I see this thing I'm so close to, I'm misperceiving, shoot, the chair? Okay. I mean, if this is true, then, you know, then it must be easy to get to that too. And I find it so incredible in the lower schools that that leap is so far. But the leap to getting to the robber came in, and this Jeff isn't permanent, unitary, independent, self-sufficient, autonomous, substantially real. The leap from that to this person, self of person, is not permanent, unitary, independent. The leap from that reaction, that feeling of the I, to no. And that's the Vibhashika's selflessness, coarse selflessness, the lowest school. The selflessness of a permanent, unitary, independent self. We're not talking about this view of the, you know, this is what the Vibhashika school says is the coarse selflessness of person. So have we worked with that well? So that's how we see, how does the I appear to us? So we were talking about that last week. We get into a meditation, we see how does it naturally appear? We're not trying to analyze this I, we're not doing anything. We're just thinking, Jeff, okay, here I am, all my parts. This whole thing here, I'm Jeff. Sometimes Jeff's the breathing. Sometimes Jeff's the end of his finger when it gets pricked by a thorn. Sometimes Jeff's just, maybe just this consciousness or my stomach moving in and out. Or hungry. Sometimes Jeff's just mine. I'm hungry. I want food, and then I get to it and, that's my food, this way I get lost in this appearance of this impermanent, unitary, independent self of Jeff, this substantially autonomous, independently existent whole thing. You feel it. When you get into it, you feel it, and then you feel it when you go out and you interact in society. And I gave an example last time. And one thing Geshe Dorje Damdu shared today that I promised myself I wouldn't not share. So beautiful. When we're reading, really write this down if you're writing things down. When we're reading texts and it says opponent, and we're saying those samkhya's, those are the Vibhashikas saying that. Yes, they're pointing out specific views, but we're the opponent because we believe all of these things. We believe everything the opponent is saying. We're the opponent in these texts. That Tsongkhapa and Nagarjuna and all these, when they set up these debates in their texts, where you say this, da 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 da, Mr. Nagarjuna, and then Nagarjuna comes back at it. This you say guy we think is so dumb, that's us. We're the ones who are believing in permanent unitary independent self. We're the ones who believe in these things like Atman. We're the ones who believe in autonomous substantial reality. We're the ones who believe that things have this, complete external objective existence. We're the ones who believe, oh, there's no externality. We're the ones who believe that things, yeah, they aren't truly existent because they dependently originate, but they have a little bit of nestness in there. We're the ones who believe that. We're the opponents. Our self-grasping ignorance, grasping at the self of person and phenomena, that's the opponent. That's the dummy in the story, in the play, in the cast of characters. The one we're always like, ha, 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 ha. That dummy. We're the dummy. When Geshe Dorje Damdu said that today, because I've for 20 years been reading these texts, opponent, and been trying to figure out the opponent. Yes, that's important because it's really Tsongkhapa is shooting at, or Nagarjuna is shooting an arrow at a target of a view out there, Samkhya view or anything below Prasangika, or a nihilist view or whatever, all the non-Buddhist and Buddhist schools below Prasangika that they're, shooting at, boom, boom, boom. And we're thinking there's somebody out there that's so dumb and it's us that they're shooting at. And we're the opponent. Our self-grasping ignorance is the opponent. Our ignorance related to karma and its results and our ignorance related to reality, that ignorance is the opponent. We're the opponent. We're the possessor of that which is being negated. We're the possessor of those views. We think we're not. We think we kind of get it, but then we walk around and our mind works just like a nihilist, works just like a substantialist, works just like Sankhya tradition. We do Tantrayana and we work, I promise you, study Samkhya. And those of you who do clear light into this, this manifestation of the clear light, the dance into all that the clear light mind does, study the Samkhya tradition and tell me you're not practicing the Samkhya tradition. Very, very similar mind basis of all language. Very similar. So you see this poor Samkhya, the poor Samkhya guy, the enumerators, those 25 aspects of phenomena. I'm a tantric practitioner. And then you find out, yeah, maybe of Hinduism. Yeah. Lorinda, can you fix the kata on His Holiness? I don't know if you're around, but if you could, I'd appreciate it so much. I just noticed it. So if it's bad, I probably hit it or something in my fury. But we don't need His Holiness anything but perfect, the Buddha of compassion. So I appreciate it so much. So that being said, I'm going to read a little bit from Meditation on Emptiness. It's probably like 12:30 right now, but that's okay. It's late, but that's okay. Tsongkhapa's disciple Kirtrip says in the Manual of Instructions on the View. I'm just going to read this one stanza, then Heart Sutra. We'll go through our ritual and we'll close probably, but that's okay. Tsongkhapa's disciple says in the Manual of Instructions on the View, if the mind thinking I is not generated, you should fabricate the thought I and immediately thereafter analyze its mode of appearance. How does this appear to me? Objectively real. Okay? You will thereby come to know its mode of appearance without mixing it with any other object. If you look gently from a corner, so now you've got the introspection, you've got that spy gently looking. You're not going like this. You're just gently, how's this eye coming up? You're gently looking at it. If you gently look at it from a corner without losing the consciousness thinking I, there's a separate mode of appearance of the I to which the consciousness thinks I. So now you're saying, okay, how is this I? Now you've got two things. How's that I? Now you're isolating something is basically what's happening. And this appearance is not any of the mental and physical aggregates. Okay. So now you've got this I, and now it feels like before it was just a solid thing, and now it's feeling like it's not the physical and mental. Okay. The I does not appear to be just a nominal designation, but appears as self-established. Through holding that the I exists the way it appears, you are bound in cyclic existence. Can the I appear to be self-established if its appearance is indifferentiable mixed with that of mind and body? So that's the question we'll leave. Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. We have to know, if we want to reread the sutra, we can rip through the Heart Sutra like that. But we need to know what the Heart Sutra means. And everything that I've been just talking about is what the Heart Sutra means. Screen share. I have to share. Two things I'm bad at. Reading the prayer from the Sanche Milan at the beginning and screen share. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajnaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Then through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita should see in this way, seeing the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas. No I dhatu up to no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind conscious dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance up to old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajnaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the three times by means of Prajnaparamita fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequal mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as true since there is no deception. The Prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way. Teata om gati gati paragati parasangati bodhisoa. 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 Teata om gati gati paragati parasangati bodhisoha. Thus, Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train the profound Prajnaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi. Praise noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajnaparamita just as you have taught. And all the Tathagatas will rejoice when the Blessed One had said this. Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Gala jube ne jo damba ne nguje du ju ngai du do jen ju ba ba lama yi bu shin zi ne song gang jo so la ja se lo aga samara je sandra samara ve aga samara je sandra samara. Aga samara ja sandra samara ya ve de ya dong gate gate parasangate bodhiso baba konchu sanji kai de doji she lobo doji mebo doji shewa doji jagi baji medu bije danji she den go ye so ha gerin jo ja je jo she wo dan meto ne be jen dan de wa dan do wa jin jin bon zon zon jo ji da ji de jan den da de le sho. Now we'll offer a perfect universe to perfect beings. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Sanje jadan ji janan la janju badu dani jazuji dagi jinso jipe sonanji drala benje sanje juba jo. Sanje jadan zaji janan la janju badu dani jazuji dagi chushe jipe sonanji drala benje sanje juba jo. Sanje Jadanza Janan La Janju Badu Dani Jazuji Dagi Juje Jibe Zonanji Drola Benji Sanje Drubar Jog. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. If you're attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. If you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you're attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. Okay. So wonderful. So a few minutes we have to be able to talk about Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. And the real kind of point is that everything that I've said thus far is a point made in Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. So it's not like we weren't looking at the information contained in it already. And we will need to all realize renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness if we want to become Buddhas. And we know that the stages of the path are put so beautifully and so clearly by Lama Tsongkhapa in the great treatise of the stage of the path to enlightenment that allow us to see, how we go through these various teaching, sharing, common with beings of small and medium and great capacity, and how we put them in an order in order for them to actually ripen into results. And how, just like I was saying, and I was, making a joke, but not making a joke about, practicing Tantrayana without the foundation and not really understanding what emptiness is correctly. And you see these views being even expressed in highest yoga tantra traditions in the world today about other emptiness and about, the mind having some kind of inherent existence, some kind of, Buddha nature, Buddha essence, that's substantially existent. And you find these teachings, everything's empty except the Buddha nature, this other emptiness, everything's empty except the Buddha nature. Being, propagated by scholars in traditions in this world right now. So we have to be very careful. And when I say it's like the Samkhya view, when you take a look at what these traditions are presenting about other emptiness, you can look up other emptiness and you'll see. The presentation of this mind basis of all is very similar to the Samkhya school. And when you start to try to figure out where you would place this teaching in terms of tenets, the seals, it starts to get hazy of whether there's even this selflessness of person. And it's highest yoga tantra. Gets hazy. I'm not saying it's not pure, just saying it gets hazy, very, very hazy. And it was critiqued by Tsongkhapa quite a bit. You can look into this other emptiness that Tsongkhapa critiqued quite a bit. And if there's brilliant geniuses out there getting emptiness wrong and able to explain all these incredible systems and hundreds of deities in a mandala, and doors and levels, and the great bliss level, and then this level, and then this level, but still don't understand emptiness. Wow. So we're so fortunate that we're contacting these teachings, the Nalanda tradition, where we know about the profound view lineage that Nagarjuna presented. And we even know a little bit how we can see in that profound view lineage, there's even wrong views. What? Yeah. The Madhyamaka Svatantrika, Baba Vega, Chandarashita, Kamala Shila, on paper, they have still had grasping, but it negated true existence. All phenomena are not truly existent. But still in there, when you start to see what they're saying about that phenomena and about stuff, you're finding that they're, according to the Prasangika, that true existence and inherent existence are synonymous, are equivalents. They don't think so. They still hold on to something. They don't have the view. Very, very, very careful we have to be, and we're fortunate to have this great text. So we're in the section on the medium scope, on the Four Noble Truths, on the various types of suffering, the varieties of suffering. We went through the 8 types of suffering, and we learned about birth, aging, sickness, and death, separating from the pleasant, meeting with the unpleasant, not getting what you want, and the suffering of the appropriated aggregate. So we went over those 8. We've got them down. I think I've said them enough Fast, slow, forward, reverse, upside down, right side up. You know, I know if you remember, for the first 6 months, we started with the enumeration of them in the meditation, in the guided meditation. 8 sufferings. Think about suffering of birth, aging, sickness, and death. This is we started with this. So we've looked at them every way possible. I feel good. I feel good about suffering. So now we move on to the 6 types of suffering. And here, this gets a little bit even more subtle, a little bit more, maybe not more, but I think it's a little more subtle. You'll have to decide for yourself whether it is or not. Obviously, you know that the driver of the mess is the pervasive compounded suffering that's driven by self-grasping ignorance. But for me, the 6 types of suffering starts to get into you're descending from high to low. It's talking about shucking off bodies. It's talking about things that are, you know, well, let's let the teaching speak for itself. I have about a couple more minutes. Okay, so I want to just do the order of them. So here we're in the Jipa Chungodan Tumo Lanji Rimba Tsar, Jipa Dindan Tumo Lanji Rimba Tanda Ngatsu Leson, Tanda Ngatsu the Demba Ji Chigadu, the Dungyo Papi Dembo, Gonchon Dapi Dembo, Guba Papi Dembo, Lam Papi Dembo, then Ngatsu Dungyo Demba the Tanda Dagadu, then Ngatsu the Dungyo Demba, the Lam Rim Chembo, the Jipa Dindan Tumo Lanji Rimba. Jipo the Dungyo Je dan Sampa, Dungyo Dru dan Sampa, Dungyo Som dan Sampa, Ngatsu Dungyo Je dan Sampa Ditsar, then Ngatsu Dungyo Dru dan Sampa Leson. Okay, so what I'm saying is when we've gone through the teaching shared in common with beings of small capacity. Now we're at the teachings for beings of medium capacity. We're teaching about the Four Noble Truths. We're specifically the Four Noble Truths. This is the superior truth of suffering. This is the superior truth of origin. This is the superior truth of cessation. This is the superior truth of path. And we're specifically looking at the truth of suffering. And we're looking at the truth of suffering. We know there's 8 sufferings, 6 sufferings, 3 sufferings. We've gone over the 8 sufferings, and now we're on the 6 types of suffering. So that's everything I said in Tibetan. So I'm reverse translating. In my Tibetan, I just want to keep it working. And for those of you listening in Tibetan, Chiran Puke Shena, Chishena Pambudu, the Chiran Nge Puke Mashena, then Ahako Gumare, Yene Nge Puke Shena, then Chishena Pambudu. And say, whether you understand my Tibetan or not, I don't know. But if you do, maybe it's beneficial to you who are listening, who are Tibetans. So 6 types of suffering. Yeah, so just in English, 6 types of suffering: the suffering of uncertainty, and then I'll just end after this: the fault of insatiability, the fault of casting off bodies repeatedly, the fault of repeatedly rebirth, the fault of repeatedly descending from the high to the low, and the fault of having no companions. And in the future, I'll do this all in Tibetan. The Jemangatsu Pike de le Ewa Dru de Dangare, Yene Teringyo Mari Ngatsu Dutu Sashon. So we're out of time. So just real quickly, the fault of uncertainty, we won't go over them. Let's just leave them at a list. And you all have Lam Rim Chemos. The Chiran de Lam Rim Chemo Yuna, the Lam Rim Chemo Da, the Dungyo Dru, then the Yure, the Ewa Kanga Yure, Dunda Kanga Yure, Dungyo Je, the Kanga Yure, Dunda, the Susu Dumba Yure, Susu Dunda, the Kanga Yure. The Lam Rim Chemo, the Jat Shewa, Lam Rim Chemo, the Lam Kanga Yire. Then the Ngatsu, the Sanje, the Sa, Drobena, the Lam Rim Chemo, Ngatsu Lobjung Shena, Namsu Lena, the Ngatsu Sanje Sa Legre. Gangesina, the Kanga Yire, the Mepa, the Dunda, the Ke Chewa, the Kanga Yire. Okay. So we'll stop with that. And then if from Sacha Kunga Nimpos, parting from the 4 attachments. If you are attached to this life, you are not a spiritual practitioner. If you are attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you're attached to your own self-interest, there is no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. So thank you all for listening. Let's do the concluding prayers of Lama Tsongkhapa's prayer for the flourishing of Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings. Sorry we didn't get more into the text. But I just got done with a 7-day teaching with Geshe Damdu, a 7-session teaching, not 7-day. 4 days, 7-session teaching on the Rice Seedling Sutra. It was all about dependent origination and emptiness. We've been getting up at 3 for a 4 o'clock class, and it's just been so amazing. 2 sessions a day to hear these incredible teachings. And so I was a little amped up and wanted to share some of this, points of emptiness and dependent origination while it's so fresh in my mind with you, because, hopefully it'll be of benefit. So if I jumped from a topic to another, I apologize for that. My whole point was just to try to give you morsels from which to enjoy, and then be able to satiate yourself with. And if any of them satiated you, then my job's done. Prayer of flourishing of Tsongkhapa's teachings. Though he's the father, producer of all conquerors, as a conqueror's son, he produced the thought of upholding the conqueror's Dharma in infinite worlds through this truth. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. When in the presence of Buddha Endraketu, he made his vow, the conqueror and his offspring praised his powerful courage. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. That the lineage of pure view and conduct might spread, he offered a white crystal rosary to the sage, who gave him a conch and prophesied. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. His pure view, free of eternity or destruction, his pure meditation cleansed of dark fading or fog, his pure conduct praised according to the conqueror's orders. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Learned, since he extensively sought out learning, reverend, rightly applying it to himself, good, dedicating for all for beings in the doctrine, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Through being sure that all scriptures, definitive and interpretive, were without contradiction, advice for one person's practice, he stopped all misconduct. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Listening to the explanations of the 3 Pitakas, realized teachings, and practice of the 3 highest higher trainings, his skilled and accomplished life story is amazing. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Outwardly calm and subdued by the hearer's conduct, inwardly trusting in the 2 stages practice, he allied without clash with good passive sutra and tantra. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Combining voidness explained as the causal vehicle with great bliss achieved by method, the effect vehicle, hard essence of 80,000 Dharma bundles. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. By the power of the ocean of oath-bound doctrine protectors, like the main guardians of the 3 beings' paths, the quick-acting Lord, Vaishvarana, Karmayana, who may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. In short, by the lasting of glorious gurus' lives, by the earth being full of good, learned, reverend holders of the teaching, and by the increase of the power of its patrons, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. And again, anybody who'd like to watch the Rice Seedling Sutra teaching, if you go to the Kala Chakra Center website, I think that it's in maybe 2 languages, but there's English, and there's 7 sessions there that you can watch. And in one of the sessions, maybe I shouldn't tell you which one, so you have to watch them all. In one of the sessions, you'll hear me bring up Khensur Geshe Wangdak, and you'll hear Geshe Dorje Damdu say that Rinpoche was one of his teachers, which then you'll see me, hopefully not on camera, lose it a little bit. Okay, so I just wanted to share that with you, and please encourage all of you, when you get a chance, His Holiness the Dalai Lama's teachings, Geshe Dorje Damdu's teachings, you cannot go wrong. And I speak from somebody who sat next to Khensur Geshe Wangdak. Not take that lightly. I would not steer you in a direction that I didn't think was completely right. I wouldn't. And I think in my this is just me, knowing what I know, what Rinpoche taught, and then seeing what Geshe Dorje Damdu has to offer, I would find it just, I couldn't imagine not just automatically just studying with Geshe Damdu. And everybody's different. Everybody has different affinities and connections, but it's just literally like picking up. It's literally like everything that I learned, but now we're just going to put like all of this icing on it. We're going to put icing all over everything you learned, and it's going to be so sweet that you're just going to want to keep, you're going to crave it. You're going to crave it more and more and more and more. And that's really what I've experienced with Geshe Dorje Damdu's teachings, is that I haven't, the news about the Madhyamaka Prasangika view, Rinpoche gave me that news, and gave me the distinctions in tenets to a degree that, yeah, I know what you're talking about. But now the degrees that I can that are so much more subtler, that because of the foundation I have that I'm able to now go to, I just couldn't imagine not doing it. And so I really encourage all of you, and I know I'm beating a dead, a drum that isn't probably even making a sound anymore. but really, Tibet House Delhi, Geshe Dorje Damdu's teachings, there's like so many on the internet that you can watch. The teacher of infinite happiness and fearlessness. and yeah, I just encourage all of you. Okay. And I think I have to do a mandala offering. Am I right? Yeah. Okay. Including mandala offering, dedication, prayer. Fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorn the Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. So fortunate to have these teachers in our lives. So fortunate to have had, I don't know, maybe 150 teachings from Geshe Dorje Damdu since Rinpoche passed. Any mistakes that I've made, may they be purified by this mantra of Vajrasattva. May they purify mine and all yours, all sentient beings' minds, imagining Vajrasattva inseparable from your root Lama in the space in front of you. And imagine that from the bliss that Vajrasattva is experiencing, white, red, and blue light rays and nectars are transforming into white ohms, red ahs, and blue homes, and showering down on you and all sentient beings, and transforming and purifying your body, speech, and mind with white ohms, red ahs, and blue homes, respectively. Om benzo sata samaya manubulaya benzo sata zena vajisa deta me baba sudagaya me baba subagaya me baba anuragda me baba savaziri me ruach savakama sucha me kitam shuyan guru hum ha bhagavan savadata kata benzo me benzo baba maha samaya safa ahom fate. May we always be protected by Paul and Lamo. So please, Paul and Lamo, teach me emptiness and bodhicitta. This is how I can be protected from a cap on my happiness and suffering. Jo Ramo, Jo Ramo, Jo Jo Ramo, Tunjo, Kalarajamo, Ramo, Ajudaja, Tunjo, Rudurong, Jong, Jo Ramo, Jo Ramo, Jo Jo Ramo, Tunjo, Kalarajamo, Ramo, Ajudaja, Tunjo, Rudurong, Jong, Jo Ramo, Jo Ramo, Jo Jo Ramo, Tunjo, Kalarajamo, Ramo, Ajudaja, Tunjo, Rudurong, Jong, Jo Ramo, Jo Ramo, Jo Jo Ramo, Tunjo, Kalarajamo, Ramo, Ajudaja, Tunjo, Rudurong, Jong, Jo Ramo, Jo Ramo, Jo Jo Ramo, Tunjo, Kalarajamo, Ramo, Ajudaja, Tunjo, Rudurong, Jong, Jo Ramo, Jo Ramo, Jo Jo Ramo, Tunjo, Kalarajamo, Ramo, Ajudaja, Tunjo, Rudurong, Jong, Jo Ramo, Jo Ramo, Jo Jo Ramo, Tunjo, Kalarajamo, Ramo, Ajudaja, Tunjo, Rudurong, Jong, Jo Rama, Jo Rama, Jo Jo Rama, Dunjo, Kalarajamo, Rama, Ajudaja, Dunjo, Rudurong, Jong. And by us invoking protectors and wrathful protectors, getting the Dharma to us, sometimes they have to do what they need to do and remove things out of our way. So yes, we're asking them to protect us, but to protect us so that they can teach us emptiness and bodhicitta. So amazing when we understand what real protection is, right? And we don't look for something out there, just please protect me. No, you protect yourself. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well, with whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times. I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. Rinpoche always used to say, hey, I don't really know the best way to dedicate. I'm not good at it. So however it is that they do it, because they do it like the best, that's the way I'm doing it. So by saying I want to do it the way they do it, my dedication is their dedication, the same as their dedication, is as vast as their dedication. My dedication, kind of weak compared. But when I look at what, Samantabhadra and Manjushri, Samantabhadra is known for making these incredible offerings and incredible dedications and so forth. When I think about how they would make a dedication and think like the kind of stuff they would say, like I can't even imagine it. I'm not that good. So how about I just say, I'm saying what they're saying. So that's what this prayer is really saying if we kind of dummy it down. I'm not really sure. I'm not a Buddha. I don't even really know what needs to be said or the best way to dedicate. I'm saying what they're saying, in the same way. And by, with whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors to traverse the 3 times, all those conquerors of the past, present, and future, those previous Buddhas, the Buddhas now, the Buddhas that will become, the way that they dedicate, that's the way that I'm dedicating right now. And we know that they dedicated to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. So it's like, it's connecting to the bigger picture. I just thought it would be interesting to just explain that. Rinpoche said it so many times. In the Pure Land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness, all powerful Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso, May you stay until samsara's end. May His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Buddha of compassion, remain in our world until there isn't a contaminated world to be inhabited. What is samsara? The container and its inhabitants. The contaminated container, because the inhabitants have self-grasping ignorance. So that which gives rise is a contaminated container, because all effects are resultant. All results depend on their cause. We have contaminated causes, so we have samsara. So easy and so hard. Okay, now one last prayer, supplication to Rinpoche, and then we will all go and be so happy that we've heard the truth of suchness. All the Buddhas are trying to do is to get to us and teach it to us. And, you know, here we are, we got it. We did a good job, you know, imagine how happy that would make Rinpoche. And, you know, I haven't studied so badly. I've studied okay. So hopefully, you know, what I have to share with you is of benefit. A complex yogi poses as a simple monk, written on March 6, 2023 by Jeff Allen. Homage to Khensur Geshe Wangdak, our precious spiritual friend who is inseparable from Aryatara. I fully prostrate, covering as many atoms as the earth as possible, to your pure body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. I offer to you drinking water, bathing water, flowers, incense, candles, scented water, food, and music purified by Om Ahom. The rarity of having 1 million wish-fulfilling gems is a common occurrence compared to meeting with a holy teacher like you, who placed the complete path to Buddhahood in our childlike hands. Just like Atisha, who came to Tibet with a lamp to dispel the darkness of ignorance, you, kind abbot, arrived in the West with a lineage purer than a diamond and begged us never to be satisfied with partial instructions. The teachings of the extensive deeds of profound view lineages flowed from your lips like nectar for our ears, that elucidating the teachings for beings of 3 capacities. Now that sound is stopped. All composite things are impermanent. You told us that all your teachers passed away and understood the sadness, entreating us to continue our studies. The Buddha does not wash away the negativities of beings, nor does he remove the miseries by his hands. The spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It is by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. We are not prepared to take this difficult journey to the highest goodness of Buddhahood without your continued guidance. The sadness in our hearts would be too overwhelming. May you swiftly return to this world and take care of us in all our lives, wherever we may be, never leaving our hearts and crowns. May all sentient beings perfectly realize renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness, so they know who you really are. And just remember, we always deepen our understanding. We look at the teachings of Buddha, we look at the 3 baskets, we look at the Vinaya basket, we look at the Sutra basket and the Abhidharma basket, and we say, okay, those teachings are perfect and they're beautiful. But then, okay, so looking at Khensur Rinpoche teaching me, those teachings are brilliant, perfect, untarnished, pure. But then, so were Buddha's 3 baskets. But then Atisha and Tsongkhapa, they put ornaments of the teachings for beings of 3 capacities all over them, all these jewels, so that then they were just made even more clear and radiant for those of us who were blinded with dirty glasses looking at those 3 baskets. So I feel so fortunate that we have, you know, a pair of glasses that, you know, these holy beings hand us and say, take off the ones that you have on because they suck. They're wrong. And here are the glasses that you need to use in order to achieve the aims that you really want to, of happiness and freedom from suffering. And that's what our teachers do for us. And we have to let them, the only way they can do it for us is if we show up. And when we show up, they really, really do it for us. And then when we show up and we create connection with a teacher, I'm starting to see with Geshe Damdu, there's just this connection that allows ripening to happen in ways that would never happen without a guru. Never. You go to college all day. If you don't have a realized teacher, taking each of the students, looking at a screen, going, I need to teach to this capacity. Wow. If you don't have that, you're really missing out, because that's what a really qualified teacher does. You never heard Rinpoche doing distinctions of Svatantrika, because he knew what we needed. But now we need ornaments. We need better. We need even more. And so please seek more. Please seek more. Don't make this a stop sign. Okay. Thank you, everybody. I hope this was clear. Now I'm going to bed. Probably not. But I'd really, oh, I would love to. If my mind would just, stop going, emptiness of inherent existence, is this, is that? How many modes? 3 modes, 4 modes, mutually exclusive. Maybe I'll get some rest. Lorinda's got the hook off the stage. See ya. Thank you, everyone, for allowing me to create this virtue. Good.